Hey guys, welcome to another episode of In Her Shoes. And we are talking all about how to share, how to sell successfully on social media and so much more with my amazing friend, Monica. So I'm going to actually bring her on. She's on here. Are you there?
I am. Can you see me?
Yay!
Yay.
I can see you.
Super close. Let me just like.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you. So, can you believe it was snowing today? Did you see the snow in New York?
I did. My boyfriend was like, I think it's snowing. I was like, it just looks like it's white rain. And then I was like, oh, it's actually snowing.
Yes. So we are going to be talking all about like sales and sharing. You're so good at what you do, Monica. And I really want to dive into, I think I want to go first into your why, like why and your journey a little bit, just so people can get a sense of who you are and why you're doing what you're doing, because there's such a big meaning around it. And, you know, whether they're watching live or the replay, you just know your stuff. Like, and I want to dive into like, you know, some of the things that you've been able to create too, and also kind of like how you're learning and how can people like bring one or two tips into their like business. So why don't you just share like a little bit about your journey and your why?
I was just talking about this. Actually, you were just the topic of a conversation I was having. But so I'm a high school teacher, and I always say that my business really started with me wanting to coach educators to have a side hustle in yoga, because I also teach high school yoga. I teach yoga. I don't teach high school yoga. But the bigger why is that my sister was diagnosed a few years ago with breast cancer at the age of 27. And so that was kind of always like my why. I was like, oh, I'm going to do health coaching. And then about a year ago, literally a year ago now, she entered into the hospital and she never left. And so it was 2020 was, you know, started off like strong. And I'll never forget, like I thought I was going to coach teachers. I literally had a few teacher clients and I was charging, you know, these little tiny prices that might buy a bottle of wine. And I think I met you at this time. We were just talking about this. I met you about February, and I didn't really have like a full picture of what business could be. And about literally, we shut down in New York City on March 13th, and I flew back to Wisconsin the Monday after because my cousin said, you know, your sister doesn't look very well. And I didn't have a business, and I went back to Wisconsin and I said goodbye to my sister. And so about 8 months ago, my sister passed away at 29 from stage 4 breast cancer. And I came back to New York, and I was like, I spent all this money, $20,000, and how to be a coach and all of this. And I was like, I don't have a business. But we're stuck at home in a pandemic. I'm a high school teacher. I can't go to work. I have a lot of grief. And so I started my business really with this idea of Instagram as a way to, I don't want to say distract me, but as a way to use all of this energy. And also as a reminder that like her children, she has 4 kids under the age, well, they're 10 and under. Her children needed to see that like, when we lose things and when things seem really crazy and really terrible, that like there's still hope. And so I'm also BRCA1. So my goal with creating this whole business was to create more freedom in my life and in the lives of the people that I work with. And at the same time, try to really do something in honor of her. She was a stay-at-home mom, but she always wanted to start like a blog and do some other things. So that's like a huge part of why I do what I do. And I think, you know, I'll never forget you sent me a book about grief. And, you know, a lot of this is fueled through grief. But I think one of the most beautiful things about grief is that sometimes when we face like losing everything, we realize what really matters.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what I'm hearing, and like, you know, my condolences too, like I remember you going through that. And, you know, I just thought to myself, wow, like in the middle of a pandemic, like you had all these kind of odds against you, and, you know, just to witness your growth and to really like, that's why I say your why is so big and it's so important. And I think even throughout this time, like people are starting to think like, okay, why am I doing what I'm doing? You know, do I really love what I do? Like, where can I take on something else that I really love, you know? And I so admire your tenacity and your hustle and just your why. Like, you know, I think your sister's with you, you know, like you're just going, and you've grown so much since then. And you're serving so many people, you know, your community, and you give so much. Like that's the whole thing I love about you. So what could you tell people, like when you were in, like if they're dealing with grief, or maybe they're not, or maybe they're grieving in their own way, and they just feel like, you know, what can I do? Maybe they feel stuck in some way. Like, is there a tip that maybe helped you go through your process?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was not to try to fake it. Like, I'm also a dancer, and we're told, like, you have to fake it till you make it. Like, just show up and smile, and one day you'll smile. And honestly, like, I showed up really raw and really real inside of my process. And I think that is why in April, I had 4,000 followers on Instagram, and now I have over 8,000. And I didn't buy bots. I didn't buy anybody. And I showed up really real, and I talked about loss, and I talked about my sister, but I didn't use it. Also, I think the other thing is not to use grief as an excuse or as like a pity project. Like, this is what I'm going through right now. And it's also okay for me to be grieving and be wanting to like make money and to like do the things and to remember why I'm doing it. And I noticed that resonated with a lot of people. Part of it's that here in the States, you know, we're all dealing with some sort of loss, whether it's the loss of teaching inside of a classroom or the loss of a loved one. But I just started showing up authentically. And so a huge part of my brand is show up as you are, where you are, doing what you do without having to like get dressed up. I wish I forgot to put on something nice. So I'm wearing like a sweatshirt. I did put on some red lipstick. Like I do the very basic things. So I did that. And then the other part of what got me through is I'd always wanted to live in an apartment that had a rooftop and an outdoor space. You're in New York, you know, like those things matter. Yeah. And, but I always thought I needed to have this much money, or I needed to have this much to do it. And I remember sitting there with my friend and being like, how much does it really cost to live on a rooftop with a balcony in New York City? And I saw a place and I was like, you know what? I think I can actually afford it. And if I can't afford it, I'll figure it out, because I figured out everything else. And so
I love that. So two things I want to take from that. One, you said, you know what, like, it's kind of like the same theory of people like not getting help in their business before they're ready, or starting before they're ready. And you're like, let me just put pen to paper and see that. Cause I know, like, when I first like wanted to hire like a VA, for example, right? And I was like, oh, I'm not making that much. And it's like, no, like when you actually sit down and look at it of what it can cost, and like you can make it happen. And the second thing you said was, okay, if it doesn't work, I'll figure it out. Like, that's huge. And I think a lot of people have fear stop them, right? Before they even start.
It's so scary. Like, I also think, so I was saying to someone, I said, my little side hustle, and they stopped me because I also think I'm a teacher, I'm a woman, and I say things like I'm just a teacher. And I said, like, my little side hustle, and somebody stopped me and was like, Monica, your little side hustle is how much money some people make in other states. And I think one of the things that has really struck me is that because I live in New York City, I think I need to make this much in my side hustle. Or hear everybody say you need to have a 6-figure business. Yeah. But really the reality is, like, 6 figures are great, but my little side hustle is actually almost half of my teacher salary.
Yeah.
Like, who would have thought in April? Like,
yeah, huge. So let's dive into some ways, right? Because now it's like everyone's online. I wouldn't say every, but like majority of people are online. And now, like, and I love that we're talking about this right now, because it's like December, everyone's, I feel like, selling something or trying to get in front of their people, right? And either share or do giveaways. Like, there's so much going on. So what can you tell people, because you grew your Instagram, right? Like, you doubled your Instagram since March. You've made, I don't know the numbers, but money-wise, you made X more, like, and you increased your revenues. So, and then you moved, right, to this amazing apartment that you always wanted to be in. And so what would you say to people if they're struggling, right? Or they want to either share more or sell more, and they feel like they're not getting traction? Like, because I know you teach so many different tools in your community and on your Instagram page and in your Facebook group. So can you share anything that like comes to mind that would help people?
So I'm going to own up to my weakness. I'm from the Midwest. I grew up in Wisconsin, and we always said it was impolite to talk about money. But here's the thing. People need to see results. So I remember I had people sign up for me the minute I said I made $40,000 or $35,000. They're like, I want to work with you. So I think sometimes we think the things that we shouldn't talk about, like the money we make or the how many clients we have, like that's bragging. But here's the thing, right? It's only bragging if we're doing it to try to tell somebody else that they're not capable, versus like, I made this money, and if I can do it at the age of 43 during a pandemic while I'm in grief, then so can you. Like, that changed it for people, because it wasn't just like, oh, Monica's talking about this and she's already doing this. And
Yeah.
so it's being very real. So when I started to show up and be like really real, the other thing is, I don't believe you have to show up every single day on a social media, but you do need to show up. Like everybody wants like the quick way to get to 10K. And also, I don't know why I want to get to 10K too. So I appreciate any follows, because I do finally want to swipe up. But 10K followers, like these arbitrary numbers, they don't mean a lot. Like, what means a lot is changing someone's life. So when I started talking about why I do, going back to the why, when I started like really getting into the place, where people, like, it's not just about increasing your Instagram presence, but like showing up for yourself. So I remember one of my clients, she signed up, she's an author, and she did Instagram to try to get more publicity or a book. And I remember she sent me a text message that was like, you know, Monica, this isn't just about social media. Like, coming to your call was the first time I got on a Zoom call, showed my face, talked about what I do. And it was like, it's about the self-confidence. It's about showing up as our real self. And now that we're all digital, it's so different. Like, we can't, I'm kind of happy now. We can't lie anymore, right? Like, I used to say my students had no idea where I live. Now I'm in the middle of teaching a class and I'll be like, you guys, I have to go let my dog up because he's crying. Or like, you know, like I was on a doctor's appointment one day and my boyfriend walked out of the bathroom in a towel and I turned bright red because I was like, oh my gosh, like, we can't hide anymore. And the beautiful thing about that is, when we can't hide anymore, then we can talk about the real things. We don't have to be a picture perfect business person. We can be a real person who, like, maybe doesn't make rent 1 month, or maybe 1 month, like, maybe you spent more in your business than you actually brought in, and that's okay. And we shouldn't judge somebody just because of that. So that's really how I grew, was I started just getting really, I don't want to say really real, but I just started to say the things that, like, I knew my audience needed to hear and wanted to hear.
I love that. And I love that because, you know, like, I'll be honest, like Monday, I had a horrible, like Monday, I don't know what was going on with me, but I was in all my feels. Like, I was excited, but there's just like something came over me and I was like, wow. And then I was like, I found myself judging myself and making, like, giving whatever I was in, like, a negative connotation. It's like, no, like, this is really happening. And I think, especially, you know, I'm pretty consistent on, like, Instagram and Facebook, and I'm doing that just for a personal goal of mine. And you're right, it's like just showing up, like, you know, just authentic. You're gonna say you're gonna mess up, you're gonna be, you know, it's not gonna be perfect. And I love that. And I love that you say, like, get out there too, because the more things we do, like, right, like, I see you go on live on Facebook too, and it's like, the more you do it, the more it builds confidence as well, right? Like, it's such a muscle that needs to be worked.
And it's so interesting too, because when I was a teacher, I'm still a teacher, but when I started being a teacher, my whole purpose of teaching my students was to give them confidence to go out and share their thoughts. And now it's like, I'm still just doing that, just with adults. And for whatever reason, when we were 16, 17, 18, we were nervous to speak, but it wasn't because we were nervous to say what we had to say. We were nervous about being accepted by our classmates. And now it's like, we're in that same place, but it's like, man, we have so much to say. And here's the other thing, like, we're realizing that the gurus and the people who are making $100,000 in one weekend, like, they're not showing up for people. I feel like the other thing that I would say to somebody is, if you want to make money, like, show up for people. Part of why I think I've been able to grow since April is that I come from a place of wanting to serve. And it matters to me if you're going through something. It matters to me that you want to talk about your children. Yeah. It's not just about the currency exchange. It's about the energetic exchange. And that's been really powerful. The other thing is, we're in a pandemic, and I'm going to say this to anybody who's watching. If you're not DMing people, I'm also really tired of people being afraid of the DMs. Listen, like, we can't go to a networking happy hour. You would not walk into, you came and met me at Luminary. You wouldn't walk into a Luminary and be like, here's my business card to everybody, and then walk back out. That's what happens on social media. So I'm like, yo, we got to talk to each other. We don't need to sell to each other, but we got to talk. And I think we're, like, all really just starved for conversation.
Yeah.
And so part of how I like talk to people is like, just show up. If
Yeah.
you DM someone and they don't want to talk to you, well, they don't want to talk to you.
They
It's
won't
like
respond.
one person in a billion people. There's a billion Instagram users. I guarantee that there's at least 5 people on Instagram who want to talk to you. So go send out 5 DMs today.
Yeah, it's so true. And, you know, I experimented with you know, in the DMs, right, of people, and like, just, you know, I was working with my coach, and he was like, you know, just be a blessing to someone today. Like, how can you be like, yes, it's about serving. Yes, it's about selling. And yes, it's about, you know, how can you also be a blessing to someone today? And it's not, you know, there is a fine line between being of service, being in service and not like having your cup full, right? Of being in service, like in a detriment to yourself.
Yeah.
And that's like, I don't agree with that when you're serving and giving, and you're not receiving. So that's not what I'm talking about. But it's like, where can I be a blessing to someone else's life, you know? And, you know, and I'm sure you agree with this, like, as you cultivate relationships, you will see, you know, like, the sale might not come in a couple days. It might come in like 9 months or a year. And, you know, and sometimes people can be like, are you serious? And they get frustrated, right?
It's because I think we hear so fast that like, I made, you know, $5,000 in my DMs, and we think, oh, like, if they did it, I need to do it that quickly. And the other thing is, like, I mean, I don't know I'm 43. I remember like the thong song, right? Like, do you even know who Cisco is anymore? He was like so popular one time. Like, I don't want to be the coach who's popular one weekend and makes $5,000 but can't repeat that. Like, that's not sustainable. Right. And so what I try to say with my clients and with anybody is like, when you show up, we want to talk to people. Like, on the other end, 98% of the time, there's a human being on the other end of an Instagram profile. I say like 2% of the time because I almost dropped you. Like, you know, there's always like a few bots out there. Yeah. But there's, you know, most of the time it's like, so that's been really helpful. That's one of the ways that I definitely like grew. And the other thing is like, I don't know, this is really hard to say, but I just stopped caring. Like, I used to think like I had to talk about yoga, or I had to talk about this, and I've paid for all the photo shoots, and I've done all the things, and they're really important to my business. I would not, I love them all, but also some of the best posts I've done have been quotes where I just said like something and I said what I said.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So again, it goes into that whole like perfect, like, it's not like you have to have, you know, this beautiful, like, sometimes, you know, people are like, I don't have, like, I had someone ask me, oh, like, I see that you don't really have, like, you know, not, she was in a nice word, she was saying like, I don't have a beautiful layout. And I'm like, girl, I don't care about like, I don't care about the colors, like, you know, and it's like, to me, like, your layout, if it's so, and I guess it depends on the, you know, if you're a photographer, maybe, but I think it's the point I want to make here is like authenticity, you know. It's like, if I feel a quote that I want to freaking just post and it doesn't fit into my Instagram, like, you know, you know, what is it? Like the way it looks, like, I'm not counting how much, you know, like, colors are represented on my feed, you know. What are your thoughts on that?
So everybody used to say to me all the time how great my grid was. And I love my grid, actually. I used to be picture quote. Mostly, to be quite honest, because I didn't have enough time in my brain, like, it helped me. But I feel like the advent of Reels has changed my whole idea of my grid, right? Because, like, Reels, you need to do them. Like, I hate to say it, but you might not want to point at corners and stuff. I don't want to curse on your, it's just, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
But you have to do it. So, like, the beautiful thing is now I can still put stuff up and then just take it down. So, but yeah, I used to be super connected to my grid. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, it needs to have a quote and it needs to, and then, like, everything else, I was like, well, why?
Yeah.
Like, is there a reason? And then I used to also not want to ever use pictures over again. And then I was like, well, that's not real. The other thing is, like, who is spending time scrolling down past 10 pictures on my Instagram? Yeah.
Unless they're a stalker. And, you know, it's fine. It's all about repurposing content too. I mean, you can't tell me that people don't, right? Like, it's just, you repurpose content. And it's like, the world is so noisy and there's so much going on in social media that honestly, even if you posted it last month, And if someone remembers, oh well, right? It could hit a different way, right?
And also, like, I have to say this, I used to do Run the Runway, and I loved me some Run the Runway, but Run the Runway was like popular because of Instagram, because people were afraid to like be in the same outfit. And like, my mom thought it was hilarious, right? Because when you just wear the same clothes, you wash them, but like, I didn't have a laundry in my old apartment. I do now.
Yeah.
Best thing ever. But like, Run the Runway kind of was like, oh, I can be in a different, I never have to repeat something. But I don't know, I just feel like I've let it go. So it's not to say that I'm entirely like off my grid. I still do like my white and black clothes. But I let go of like the perfectionism, like, oh, I can't post this today. Or like, the other thing is, if something doesn't do well, just take it down, but don't delete it. I always feel like two people are like, oh my gosh, my picture didn't, okay, so it didn't do well. Either leave it or take it down, but it like, that shouldn't be, it's not personal. I've also realized that.
Yeah, that's so good. What would you say, like, if people, I don't know, like your client, right, who's an author, like if people want to grow like their numbers, like, and they're getting, you know, like, cause growth is, you know, people want growth, but they're getting frustrated. Like what words of advice would you give them, or any like tactics?
So keywords are new and they're really popular. So hashtags are still, listen, I used to tell y'all to use recent hashtags. It's just not working. So keywords are the new thing. So you can actually test them out. I have them on mine. And so make sure that inside of your Instagram bio, you have keywords. So we used to want to be super creative and be like, I'm the glitter fairy. Well, if glitter fairy isn't a searchable keyword, you're not the glitter fairy. That can be somewhere else, but like, you're a coach. Like, sometimes I think that's the other thing. We want to be so creative, and like, it's okay to just like use keywords. And then the other thing I think is engagement. So I always say this, I did a master class yesterday, and I think a few people had joined here today from that. But we're so keen to send people up to our link in bio, but I want people to stop like directing people away from the conversation. So if you want to grow, stop telling people to leave and use the tip that your high school English teacher, that's me, told you, which is to ask a really great question. Like, people, I always want to think this way. People want to give you engagement on social media. They came on Instagram to have a conversation. So offer them the chance. So, you know, when your last sentence is click the link in my bio, like, well, just after that, ask them a question, like, click the link in my bio. And now I want to know, like, did you see the snow today? Like, ask people.
That's so good.
That's how I saw growth, was like engagement. And the other thing to note is that Instagram wants you, they don't want you to leave the platform. So ask really great questions, and that is going to help people see growth. There's just no way around it. Go back to your high school English teacher. If you don't know who she is, you don't remember her, like, you can come message me. I'm still a high school English teacher.
Well, you know, it's so good. You bring up such a good point, because like, you're so right. People want connection. Like, people want connection. People want to be around people, like, right. Like, and we can do it so much easily on social media. And it's like, and yet people are just, sometimes I feel like people just sell to sell at you. Like, they're not really engaging, you know, in the conversation or on your post.
And it's because it worked one time. Like, I definitely still have a link in my bio, and I still tell people to click the link in my bio. But ultimately, like, if you have 50 people who click the link in your bio, but not one of them left you a comment, your post didn't do well.
Right.
Now, you might be saying like, well, I got 50 new people to my Facebook group, but do you even know how those 50 people found you? Like, you don't know. Right. It's really hard. Instagram, the best data we have, I always tell my clients, like, ask a question. Now, when they comment, tell them you're going to like send them a DM, and then send them a DM to the link in your bio. Like, it's such it makes sense. And people actually, like, people want to, I always think this, and maybe that's just my like positivity, but people want to comment. They want to share your post. They want to engage with you. So ask a really great question.
Yeah. And I agree with that, because when I was really like heavily in the DMs, I get people that wouldn't respond to me, and then I would get people be like, oh my God, because I would take the time to look at their freaking profile and also their links. And some of them would be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you took the time. It only took like a minute, right? So it's like, give a F, right? Like, care. And that's the whole thing that you're saying, is like, care, you know, and connect, and like really engage with people.
It's like, I showed my client this morning, I was like, listen, we're going to go make 3 connections in 5 minutes. And I think she thought I was lying. And I was like, we're going to go here. We're going to do this. And I just watched her and I was like, hey, look, that person I DM'd is already like messaging me back. And I was like, I just want you to recognize that in 5 minutes or less, I made 3 new connections. I'm like, will any of them become a client? I don't know. But if I can every day in 5 minutes make 3 new connections, and you do that 5 times a week, that's 15 potential new connections. Well, one of those is going to convert to either a client or to somebody in my Facebook group or a follower. Like, it was worth it. Yeah. And again, because here's the other thing I always say to clients. You either are going to pay with time or money, and you just have to decide which one is valuable. And right now, I don't have the money. And also, like, I kind of like Instagram. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm not ready to give it up. But, like, you know, you either, if you get bots and you see people who use the bots, like, that's still time or money. They use their money to save them time.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I love that, the whole time and money thing, because it's either time or money. Like, that is it. And sometimes, you know, you feel it because, like you said, you know, with some other coaches, right, that have the huge, you know, 7-8 figures, like they can do all of the, you know, the outreach. And then sometimes, like, you know, sometimes maybe that's not everyone's cup of tea. Like, right. It's like and this is another thing, like, only your people can hear you, you know, and it doesn't have to be right at this time. Maybe your people are, you know, like, because I'm all about, like, sometimes you hear it in a different way. It's kind of like when you listen to an audio like 6 or 7 times, you're like, oh my gosh, I never heard it in that way before, right?
Oh my gosh, I'm finally learning the lesson that you don't need to, like, keep on creating new content. Like, it's okay to just say the same content over and over again. And I should know that because I'm a teacher, and I know kids don't learn it the first time, but, like, we're trained that we always have to have new content. And the reality is, like, again, you can use your same post from like a week ago, just reformat a little bit and add a different emoji and maybe change your question. And, like, that's how you get to be credible, is just saying the same thing over and over. Because people say to me now, I won't say I'm so visible, but I'm pretty visible now that people, like, are like, oh, you're the girl who talks about this. Like, because I've always, like, I don't change, you know, and I remember thinking, like, oh, I need to have it's a new week. And it's like, no, people need to hear the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. So your recommendation is, like, just change a few things around.
Change it around, or say it differently, or say it with a different inflection, or have fun with it. You know, the other thing about Instagram, and I hate to say this, I don't love Instagram in the same way that, like, I love other things. I mean, I actually forgot I have something at 6:30. Kelly, don't be mad at me.
Yeah, no.
But I want to say this. There is nothing new. Here's the thing. I'm a teacher. You're going to read Shakespeare, and it's always going to be the same thing. Instagram is the same way. There's no new way to find followers on Instagram. I don't have any, like, huge new brain science that, like, nobody else has talked about. But it's how we talk about it. It's the way that I say it that connects to you. It's how you interpret it and then how you apply it. And that's the thing, right? Like, people are like, oh, I can't do this because somebody else already did it, but nobody is you. There's, like, Instagram, there is no new way to find followers on Instagram besides the same way that we've been talking about. There's just how I apply it and how you apply it. So if you hear me say, like, listen, today what I did is I went to a group that I like to follow. So I went to Be a Luminary, and I started to engage with people on Be a Luminary's post, and then I connected with 3 new people. Like, go use that.
Yeah.
And it's not stealing, and somebody else that has the same idea. I guarantee you that any other Instagram coach is going to say the same thing, because that's what works. It's the same thing when you go to a BNI. Like, we all stand around and say our pitches. When you hire a coach, and you and I are both coaches, we tell our clients the same thing. People hire us. People will resonate with you, not because you have a brand new idea, but because the way that you share your ideas resonates with them.
100%. So before you leave, just give us any kind of last words or wisdom or anything that you want to leave people. And I mean, obviously they can find you on Instagram, and then you have a Facebook community, but where do you want to guide them?
Well, if you identify as a woman, I hope you would come join me on The Wealthy Women. It's in the link in my bio. I know. And here's my, like, thing, because I know somebody out there is, like, saying 2020 has been a really big shit show. So I would ask you 3 reflection questions. What are you leaving behind in 2020? What did 2020 reveal to you? And what are you taking with you to 2021? and let that be your Instagram strategy. Let that be your course creation. Let that be your business. Let that be your life. I'm leaving behind, fear in 2020. Like there's no time but the present. I'm loving the body that I'm in. I'm trusting in it. 2020 revealed to me that there are amazing people and connections everywhere. I met you, via something random. Actually, it was really good liquor truffles at your event at Cant.
Oh yeah, right.
But 2020 revealed that there are amazing opportunities for us to connect. And what I'm taking with me to 2021 is just the reality that there's so much more to do and to be in this world. And so if those are three things that's what I would help, say to you, to leave with you, to guide you. What are you leaving behind? What did it reveal? And what can you take with you? Because it wasn't all terrible.
No.
It was.
Oh, that's why I love you, Monica.
This
so good. So guys, I mean, really sit with those questions, because you could journal a couple pages on each of those questions alone and really reflect. So thank you so much for your time and your energy. And guys, check her out. Make sure you follow her. Make sure you join her community on Facebook. And you're always giving away amazing content. So all the time, this woman and I don't even know if it's repurposed, because I'm no, I don't know. She's saying it differently or something, because
I probably have a different lipstick and dance a little bit. But yeah, come check me out. And again, send me a DM. I love them and I will respond back.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much, love. And we'll talk soon.
All right. Talk soon. Bye, Kelly.
Bye.